Welcome to the analysis of the Mock-4 paper 2. We will look at some elegant ways of solving questions and also discuss certain questions in detail. In this question we have got three statements. All children are creative, some children are prodigies, talented children could turn out to be prodigies. Now since all children are creative and some children are prodigies, all those who happen to be prodigies are children and hence they must be creative. It's important to know that when you say some children are prodigies, it means they can be one, two, three, or all. It only excludes the case that there is no child who is prodigy. Now, so if I combine the first two statements, it obviously uh, it's very obvious that statement B is our correct answer. Some prodigies are creative. So when you say some prodigies are creative, we know prodigies are creative. When you say some prodigies are creative, remember it also includes the case of all prodigies being creative. Hence, statement B is correct. Now let's look at the other statement why they are wrong. Children are talented means all children are talented. That's said nowhere in the three statements. All talented children are prodigies. But if you look at the third statement, it says talented children could turn out to be prodigies. So there's no certainty about this. Hence, statement C is wrong. Statement D, creative children are generally prodigies. This has no meaning in the word generally definitely has no meaning in logic. Hence, this is a wrong statement. Hence, the appropriate answer is B. Let's solve this question using two methods. The first method is a conventional method where the total cost price multiplied by 1.12, because that is 12% more than the total cost price, is equal to the total selling price per unit into the total quantity. So you get what you get by multiplying these two is the total selling price, and 1.12 times total cost price must be equal to this. So you get the value of x as 13. So this involves equations, and by solving the equations you will get the answer. Now I'm going to try show you another method where if your calculations are fast and if your concepts of averages are clear, you'll find that this method is very useful. Averages is basically when you're combining two types of rice, one costing 34.6 rupees per kg and another costing 36.6 rupees per kg, to get some mixed quantity whose average price, let me say, is A. And in this question we are saying that you have used 27 kgs of 34.6 and we want to find out the value of x. The data also says that this A, when increased by 12%, is 39.48. So my first problem is to estimate A. I know that A has to be somewhere around 35. That's through my intuitive calculations. Why? Had it been 35, a 10% more than 35 would be 3.5 and 2% extra will be 0.7. So it should have been equal to 39.2. So, but we are looking for 39.48, which means we have to still increase it by 0.28. Now let me say instead of 35 had it been 1 rupee more, which means the value of A had been 36 instead of 35. Then our selling price should have increased by 1.12 because selling price has to be 12% more than the cost price. In that case, we would have crossed 39.2, but we were looking only for an increase of 0.28. And I can see readily that 1/4 of 1.12 is 0.28. Hence, it means that my cost price should have been 35.25, 1/4 of a rupee. Now, average is nothing but a value where the deviations about that value is 0. So we have a deviation of 34.6 here, which is a deviation of 0.65, and in the other case we have a deviation of 1.35. So I can see that the product of 27 into 0.65 is getting cancelled out with x into 1.35. That's why you're getting the average is 35.25. Now I can see that 1.35 is almost 2.1 times of 0.65, right? 2 times is 1.3, and then approximately 0.1 times gives you 1.35. So we must look for a value, right, which is of x, for which 2.27 would be about 2.1 times. So from the given options, 13 is the best choice. We have got three statements here. First statement says only those who know how to dance can become members of the salsa club, which means if you don't know how to dance, you can't be a member of salsa club. Some members of the salsa club are trained dancers. So at least there is one person in the salsa club who knows how to dance. So it may also mean that all the people of salsa club know how to dance, but is not a necessary condition. Those members of salsa club who are trained dancers can take part in salsa competition. So those participating in the salsa competition from salsa club must be trained dancers. Now let's look at the conclusions. All those who know how to dance are members of salsa club. No, this is not true, because uh, they might not decide to be a part of the salsa club itself. All members of salsa club know how to dance. Of course, if you go from the first statement, only those who know how to dance can become. So you can't get the membership of salsa club if you're not a dancer. So this is obviously correct. Now let's see why choice C is wrong. All those who take part in salsa competition are members of the salsa club. It's nowhere said in statement 3 that only members of salsa club can participate in salsa competition, right? So this is not correct, and this is obviously not correct. Hence the correct answer is choice B. Here we have a small paragraph. Last year, Mr. Kulkarni, along with his family, went to London for a small vacation. This year, he is not looking forward to the family trip, as they are planning to go to Singapore. Based on this, we have to arrive at the conclusions. Now, in this, we can say that choice B and choice C are definitely out, because Kulkarni preferring going to London or going to Singapore is not a very direct conclusion. He went to London, he is not keen on going to Singapore, does not mean that he prefers going to London. Maybe he prefers going to some other place too. Mr. Kulkarni goes for a vacation every year. This also because just from 2 years we can't say that he goes for vacation every year. So choice B and choice C are out. Now between A and D there's a very fine line. Now choice D is definitely clearly given from the statement. This year is not looking forward to, because he does not want to go there, since the family is planning to go to a trip to Singapore. So D is definitely there. Choice A is loses out by a very thin margin. Mr. Kulkarni's children want to go to London. We don't know who is making that choice, but the family is planning a trip to Singapore, right? Probably children want, probably his wife wants, or maybe we don't know what exactly is the family. So the fact that Kulkarni's children want to go to Singapore is a specific input, and this is not concluded from the given statements. Hence, choice A loses out and choice D is the most obvious answer. So we have 6 people here. We have Gagan, Magan and Rajan studying in PDS school. So PDS school has 3 people, Gagan, Magan and Rajan. And we have Vidya Kendra school, VKS. We've got Anil, Bhavna and Champa. And the question is all about ordering them in the sequence of brightness. Bhavna is brighter than Champa. So if I were to put them in an order where from left to right, where left is the brightest, Bhavna is brighter than Champa. So Champa will come after Bhavna. But duller than the PDS student, who is brighter than Gagan, who is so Gagan is brighter than Bhavna, and she is duller than the PDS student who is brighter than Gagan. There is some PDS student who is actually brighter than Gagan. So Gagan is not the brightest. The same PDS student is duller than Anil. So we have Anil, and there is a PDS student who's duller than Anil but brighter than Rajan. So the guy who's the PDS student is brighter than Rajan. So Rajan must come here. So the other person has to be Magan. So which implies Rajan can be anywhere from the third position till the sixth position. So we don't know the position of Rajan, but we know the position of the first. No two among the six students from the same school are of the same brightness. So if we look at the question, who is the brightest among the six, we see that Anil has to be the brightest because he is the leftmost. Who is the dullest among the three students from the PDS school? So if I look at the person who is the dullest among the PDS school we have Gagan, Magan and Rajan. Now we don't know about Rajan. Rajan is coming immediately after Magan, before Gagan or after Gagan. So if we look at the sequence here, we can't be sure where Rajan is placed. Hence, we do not have sufficient data to answer the question. Hence, the appropriate choice is D. So in this question, we got 6 books which have to be ordered from number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In this 6th position, we have to order. The conditions that are given is B5 is immediately above B2. And then we also have B4 is below B6. Neither of these two books are in the third position from the bottom. Third position from the bottom is position 4. So B4, B6 comes above B4, not necessarily immediately, okay? And they cannot be not in 4. And then we also have B1 is above B3 but below B5. So B5, B1, B3, this must be the sequence. Not immediate. B5 is in even position. So B5 can occupy positions either 1, 3 or 5 because these are the even positions from the bottom. So let me start with B5 being at the position number 5. Then B2 has to come in 2. Now let's put B6 here, position 3 because it cannot be in position 4. So B4 has to be either in this position or it can be in this position. So for each of these cases we have got options like B1 coming here, B3 coming here, or we have B5, B2, B6, B1 and B3. Now let's put B6 in position number 5 because it cannot occupy position 4, in which case if this is B6 this has to be necessarily B4 and we know this has to be B2 and B1 comes above B3, so this has to be the sequence. There is no other possibility with B1 being in the position 1. B1 cannot be in position 5 because there are at least 4 books below it. So this cannot be the answer. So the only other possibility is B1 being in position 3. B5 in position 3. If B5 is in position 3, B2 must come immediately below this and B1 and B3 have to be here. And in which case the natural choice is. So apart from this, there is no other possibility for B5. Hence, these are the only options that are existing for this sequence. So hence the correct answer is 4. Although fragile, there are dreams that cannot perish as they illuminate the path of our lives. So even though there's some dreams can be fragile or some they do not perish as they are throwing light or kind of lighting our the path that we live. Which of the following is a valid inference? All fragile things perish. This straight away is negated because the statement itself is talking about certain dreams that though fragile but do not perish. So A is anyway straight away gone. No inspiration can perish. This is a little out of the way context, so I don't think we must. So any statement that looks completely off the context, just kind of skip it. Dreams are necessary to live, not necessary. Nowhere is it said. Some dreams do not perish. This is the correct answer. So this looks a very obvious question. This looks a little confusing, but when you read it, it becomes simple. A at B means A is the mother of B. B minus C. M minus M means M is the father of. B is the father of C plus D. C plus D. So the minus and plus are here only operators. Just remember, it got nothing to do with mathematical minus C and plus C. So this is brother of D, who is the daughter of. D cross E is D is the daughter of E. So if we look at it, D must be the daughter of E. We don't know whether E is the mother or father. C is the brother of C is the brother of D, and B is the father of D, father of C, which implies if the B is the father, E must be the mother. Assuming there are no stepsons and stepdaughters, so on. And then we know that A is the mother of, so the relation between A and E is that of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Hence the appropriate answer to this question is, in this question we got 5 people who have scored on an average 54. So total score must be 54 into 5, that is 270 runs. Suri, let's say, scores X runs. So Suri is scoring X. So Veera will score X plus 7. Suri is 8 less than Sachi. So Sachi scores X plus 8. So together this makes a 3X plus 15. We also have UV scoring as much as Veera plus Suri. So there is 2X plus 7 and UV plus Kohli scoring 159 runs. So if UV plus Kohli score 159, the rest of them must score 270 minus this, that is equal to 111, from which we'll, if we solve, we'll get X is equal to 32 runs. So if X is 32, then UV must score 32 into 2 plus 7, that is 71 runs. So the rest of it, Kohli must score 88 runs. Hence the correct answer is Kohli. In this question we have got 3 boxes having 216 candies. The number of candies in B1 and B2 together is twice that of B3, which in turn has twice as many candies as B2. Find the number of candies in B. So we will solve this question using a couple of methods. One of the methods is given here. Here, if you assume the total number of candies as X in B2, in B3 there will be 2X, B1 and B2 put together is 4X, hence they must be 3X in B1. So totally there are 6X and 3X must be half of it. You don't have to actually even find out X and solve it. Half of 216 is 108. So this is one of the methods. Let me now look at some of the other methods using percentages, and so let me call this method 2. In this method, we find that B1 plus B2 together as twice as much as B3, which means 100 out of 100%, 66.66% has to be B1, B2 and 33.33% has to be B3. And since B2 has half as much as B3, B2 will be 16.66%, which implies B1 has to be 50% and 50% of 216 is 108. So 50% of 216 is 108. So by way of percentages, this question could have been done without writing anything on the paper. The other method is very similar to the first method, but this could be done mentally. So if B1 and B2 together is same as, or rather twice as much as B3, so if you divide the entire 216 into three parts, one part will be, that is 72, will be B3, and B1 plus B2 must be the rest of it, that is 144. Now if B3 is twice as much as B2, this must be 36, hence B1 must be equal to 108. Very similar to the original method that is given, but it's just that we are skipping the variables x in solving this question. 4 fair dice are thrown simultaneously. No two dice have the same result. What is the absolute difference between the minimum and the maximum possible values? The sum of the outcomes. So this is a fairly simple question. The minimum would be when you get 1, 2, 3, 4. The maximum would be when you get 3, 4, 5, 6. So you see the difference is essentially a difference of 11 minus 3, which is equal to 8. Hence the appropriate answer is B. This passage is talking about the effects of rising prices, the inflation, on the prospects of Congress. It also talks about what could be the reasons for the high input costs and why the inflation is happening. So here this is talking about raw material prices, wage increases, forcing firms to pass on the cost to the clients. So that is actually leading to core inflation. And it also is talking about Rajan, who is the central bank head, whose intervention has been to keep raising the interest rates in order to keep the inflation in check. So let's look at the questions now. Core retail inflation is high due to, of course, this is a direct reference to high input costs, which is the material costs and the wages. It doesn't talk about heavy rains. Only thing is it says heavy rains could see food prices spike again. So it's not talking about heavy rains being a reason for high food prices. Hence, from the given choices, only choice 1 or choice A is correct. Now let's look at the next question. Which of the following is keeping core retail inflation elevated? Damage to crops is, in this passage we are just talking about the possibility that damage to crops can increase the prices, but a direct reference to hike in wages or workers' salaries has been referred to, which has been passed down by the companies to the customers. Hence, choice C is correct. In this question, consider the following assumption. It is sufficient for a ruling party to ensure that it continues to stay in power if it controls inflation a month before elections. There is no mention of this. It only says that high inflation could lead to the chances of Congress dwindling. So, it doesn't say that it is a sufficient condition for Congress to come back to power. So, anyway, one is out. One of the responsibilities of the Reserve Bank of India. So, one is to keep a vigil on inflation risk, as per Leif Eskelsen's. You might be actually tempted to mark this as the answer, and it's actually a very thin line between this being the answer and not being the answer. The only thing is, it talks about central bank, and if we use our knowledge to conclude that Reserve Bank India is the central bank, then 2 would have been the answer. But since there's not enough information, D might be the appropriate option by a whisker. This passage is a commentary on Indian democracy. it talks about what exactly Indian democracy is going through, what are the possible reasons why it is not doing too well in substance, and what could be the reasons why uh, the entire system of democracy in India could fail. So, there are a few critical points here. Jamie Chandler talks about democracy being in a tenuous situation, needs much improvement in strengthening government institutions, in curtailing repression and lowering income inequality, and uh, talks about if these continue, democracy could be in jeopardy. We also have Vinay Sahasrabudhe stating that Indian democracy is more impressive in form than in substance, and there is no longer credibility of politicians among the people. People no longer believe that uh, they pursue honest politics, and it also talks about deeply entrenched uh, and unmovable leaderships in a lot of party hierarchies, and it talks about how apart from a couple of parties, most of it is dynastic rule that is actually happening in political parties dominated by just one charismatic leader. And it also talks about how Indian politicians have sacrificed ideology for personal gains. So these are the critical points that this passage raises. So now let's look at the questions. According to the passage, which of the following are the reasons for decay of democracy in India? Parties controlled by dynastic rule, preference given to extremist ideologies. Nowhere is it very clearly stating this. Politicians not earning what they deserve. It talks about politicians not being true to the spirit of democracy, and it also does not talk about shuffling in party hierarchy. So obviously, dynastic rule in a significant part of parties is what is one of the reasons for democracy failing. Democracy in India is not in jeopardy because, so there could be a little correction in this answer key here. It says that democracy is going to be in jeopardy if the government institutions are not autonomous. So not being autonomous would not be a reason for not being in jeopardy. So this is definitely not the correct answer. Similarly, politicians believing that they no longer pursue politics for some great cause, that could actually lead to democracy's decay in the future. So this also is not the answer. So existence of too many political parties is not the issue. The issue is not that existence of too many political parties. The issue is about the leadership in these political parties, how they become leaders. So there's a dynastic rule in these political parties. That is the reason for jeopardy. So not existent, not in jeopardy. This is not a reason for not jeopardy. Hence, uh, democracy is not in jeopardy because there are too many parties. That's not the reason. From the above given below, choose one correct option which can contribute to improvement of democracy. So it talks about if the trends of autonomy for government institutions, the trend of repression of inequality, if these are not removed, the passage says that that is when there is a danger of we losing out on democracy. So if you look at the choices here, very clear inequality is between reducing the gap between rich and poor, and it does not get into the caste equations. One could also be tempted to interpret inequality in terms of choice A, but somewhere there seems to be inequity in people, not in terms of caste equations. That's not what the passage is talking about. So, among the choices A and D, D seems to be more appropriate option. Here we have a question based on scheduling of some subjects. We have 6 subjects: physics, chemistry, zoology, and 3 in arts, which is history, psychology, and science. They were held on consecutive days, 6 consecutive days from Monday to Saturday. The lecture on physics was held before, so it precedes zoology. Need not be immediately, it can be, there could be some subjects before that. history comes before sociology. Sociology comes before the lecture on physics. So, using this data, we know that history followed by sociology, followed by physics, followed by zoology need not be successive, but they could be some other subjects coming in the gaps here. For none of the areas, all the three subjects were held on the 3 consecutive days. So, which of the following lectures could be held on a Saturday? For example, we know that history comes, sociology comes, physics comes, and then zoology comes. Now, if I look at Saturday, right? Now, it's possible that zoology is coming on Saturday, in which case put some art subject here, which is psychology, and then we have a science subject coming either here or here. So, zoology is possible. Similarly, chemistry is possible. So if you put physics, zoology and chemistry as on a Saturday, so I could have a art subject here and then history and sociology coming on Monday and Tuesday respectively. So chemistry is also possible. Similarly, by using the same logic, you will find that instead of chemistry, I could have psychology here and chemistry coming in here. So psychology is also possible. So hence the appropriate answer to this question is all the above. The lecture on physics was held on Thursday. So if you take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, physics is coming here. Then which of the following alternatives gives the lectures those that were held on the first 3 days? Now let's go by choices here. Now if I were to put chemistry, psychology and history, it's not possible because it violates the principle that physics has to come after sociology. So this is not a possible question. So history and sociology have to be there. So that's one thing that you can always see. So history and sociology have to be there in two of these, and since 3 consecutive cannot be arts, so chemistry, history and sociology is a possible option. This is neglected because 3 consecutive art subjects are coming, hence the appropriate answer is B. If the lecture on history was held on Wednesday, now we know that history comes before sociology, which comes before physics, which comes before zoology. So if history was held on a Wednesday, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday are fixed, and you know that 3 arts cannot come consecutively. So this has to be necessarily chemistry, and here it has to be psychology. Hence the appropriate answer is A. The lecture on sociology was held on. Now it's not possible for us to determine it because there are multiple possibilities. Let me take two simple possibilities here. History on Monday, sociology on Tuesday, then we have physics on Wednesday, zoology on Thursday, then we have psychology on Friday and chemistry on. This is one possibility where history was being held on Tuesday. Suppose I have history, chemistry, sociology, physics, zoology, psychology, in which case sociology is coming on Wednesday. So you can see multiple cases are possible, hence uniquely identifying the day on which sociology lecture was conducted is not possible, hence it cannot be determined uniquely. It was a fairly simple and logical question. Now there are n students sitting on a circle and everybody is equi-spaced. So the person number 8 and person number 20 are diametrically opposite to each other. Now if you do 20 minus 8, that you get as 12. This indicates all the numbers from 9 till 20, which means it includes 20. So if I look at numbers from 19 to 8, so you find that there are 11 numbers on this half, 2 along this diameter, and there will be 11 on this side. So in fact totally there will be 24 people. Hence the appropriate answer is 24. All authors require ideas. Inspiration provides ideas. Inspiration books are enjoyed by readers. Inspirational books top the charts. Which of the following inferences can be drawn from the above? All authors require inspiration. Now, there is an element of doubt that can come here. Authors require ideas, inspiration provides ideas, but it doesn't mean that only inspiration provides ideas. So there could be authors who are getting their ideas not from inspiration but from somewhere else. Hence, this is not the appropriate option. Ideas cannot be provided by anything other than inspiration. The four sentences don't say anything about it. Most authors produce inspirational books, irrelevant again. If you look at choice D, inspirational books are preferred by readers. Now, inspirational books are enjoyed by readers. They enjoy reading, and you also find that inspirational books happen to top the charts. So, obviously, there are more readers for inspirational books. Hence, it can be inferred that inspirational books are preferred by readers. Hence, the appropriate answer is D. We have three statements here, and we have four choices, which are conclusions. So you have to find out which of these conclusions is correct based on the statements. The first statement says, uh, none but the famous are attract media, which means it means that if you are attracted by media, you have to be famous. Second statement says some of those who attract media face undesirable circumstances. So it basically means some famous face undesirable circumstances. Three, some of those who face undesirable circumstances due to media pay a heavy price for being famous. So it's almost like saying that some famous people pay a heavy price for being famous. Now let's look at the four options. All the famous are covered by media. This is not true because it only says that if you are covered by media, you have to be famous. So it doesn't mean that all famous are covered by media. Statement B, those who attract media face undesirable circumstances. Now this indicates that all those who attract media face undesirable circumstances. That goes against the statement that we have that only some of those who are face undesirable circumstances. So this also is wrong. All of the famous pay heavy price for being famous. It's not all. We are talking about some, hence this option is also wrong. All those who attract media are famous. This is the most appropriate option, and it comes from statement 1. This is a fairly simple question. It says P is not shorter than Q. So which means if Q is here, P can either be at the same level or higher than that. So let me call this as P. S is not shorter than R. Similarly, you have R. S is either at the same level or higher than R or taller than R. Q is taller than R. So if this is at a higher level than this, you know for sure that what can be concluded is P is greater than R for sure. We can't say anything about any other relation. So if you actually look at the options, there's only one option which indicates this, hence this option is D. This is a beautiful passage on education. It talks about what is the essence of education. Uh, Education is so much about beyond its conventional boundaries, forms the very essence of all our actions. So all our actions are actually uh, influenced by education that we have. In the second sentence, it talks about how through instructions, through observations and assimilation, we kind of put into action what we learn. And when we are not actively learning, even then the mind is analyzing the similarities of many things and tiny nuances, and then it's making meaning out of it. So it basically means that even when you are not actively learning, mind is actually processing and doing a lot of self-learning itself. And what constrains this is the knowledge with self-doubt that we have. It is our inability to expand our own horizon. It also talks about why we do not learn, go for higher education, because education is just looked as a tool for reaching a specific target or a personal mark. It goes on to say that the importance of education is indispensable, and in a society, knowledge and education cannot be kept apart, and a good education gives us the ability to be very responsible people in the society by sticking to rules and regulations and taking care of ourselves. So this is a summary of the passage, and now let's look at some of the questions. Which of the following is the reason behind people not pursuing higher education despite believing that education is a necessity? Self-doubts prevents them from expanding their own horizons of knowledge. It's more about learning. We stop ourselves from learning more. It doesn't have anything specific with higher education. So this is not the option. Society and knowledge cannot be separated into two distinct entities. This looks a very irrelevant choice to the given question. Education is used as a means of, so this is what is restricting us in studying further. A person learns enough through primary education against an irrelevant choice. Look at the next question. How do we come to know that the mind has a potential to learn more? This we said is even when we are not actively learning, and the mind is doing a lot of processing, figuring out interrelations or tiny nuances between different aspects, and that is what is given in choice B. In fact, choice A could also be a way, it's an extension of choice B, but specifically in the passage we are talking about uh, what the how the brain analyzes similarities. Good education is essential for us because it looks beyond conventional boundaries, and most importantly, it makes us self-reliant regardless of all the situations. So it helps us take care of ourselves. So that's the critical thing about good education. So the others are mentioned as a part of good education, but the core of good education is our ability to be self-reliant.